the next three questions. One, tell us about the study showing the reduction in cardiovascular disease when women substituted beef with beans. Second question, is it true that all protein is made by plants, that no animal is able to take nitrogen out of the air and incorporate it into an amino acid, and that only plants can do that, so any protein you get from an animal source is a secondhand plant protein? And third, what tests should we get to make sure we are healthy? Where do we start? Should we get a blood test, a urine test, a stool test, a hair analysis test, a bone density test? If we are concerned about our health and want to go to the doctor and say, let's see what's going on with me, where do we start? What should we do?
Okay, I'm going to snatch up that protein question before anybody beats me to it. And the answer is only plants make protein. And when I say that, I mean only plants have the ability to take nitrogen atoms from the air, break them apart, chemically reduce them, and then incorporate them into the amino acids that ultimately make up all proteins. Any protein you get from an animal source is, in one way or another, recycled plant protein. Now, animals can take these plant proteins and deconstruct them and reconstruct them into different amino acids, but ultimately that nitrogen came from a plant. So truly, only plants make protein, and you can take that to the bank.
I think I would just add, just to qualify the statement, that only plants make essential amino acids. Okay, so there's an ability to build proteins in animals, but only plants. So the thing that you need to remember is so many people say about quality of protein and you must eat animal products to get the essential amino acids. They all come from plants. Plants make them, it's where they come from. It doesn't make any sense. To me, it really defies rationality to assume we can't get them from plants. It's where they come from. So just to add that.
All right, so folks, I want to point out what these two sneaky devils just did. They both ganged up on one question and left the other two for me. Just so we're clear on that. All right, fine then. So in terms of all the tests you ought to do, let's make this one short. Refer to the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force. Best evidence-based repository of what tests actually produce a likelihood of benefit for you. Should you get a total body scan? No. Will you identify tests you might want to do for specific reasons that are beyond this? Yes, but if the question is what should everybody have done at what age, varying by sex and health risk and so forth, this is the best evidence-based repository of those guidelines anywhere on the planet, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force. Let's just leave that one there rather than get into minutia about all kinds of separate tests. And then the other question was about the 2010 study by Bernstein et al. Do you want to jump in about the USPSTF?
Yeah, about the test. The two things that I would say that all vegans should have tested when you go to the doctor: make sure they check your B12 level, make sure they check your D3, aka I can't say vitamin D. I'm sorry. Your D3 level, so to make sure that you are replete in both of those. And so whatever else they do, make sure they check those two things.
Good advice. So the other question was about the study. This is a 2010 study, Bernstein et al. Out of Harvard, Nurses' Health Study cohort. What was interesting about this, so this was looking at variations in protein sources in the diet and cardiovascular disease. And what makes it interesting, because there's a lot of literature on that, and I think you've gotten our collective opinion on the topic, this was very food specific. So it looked at, so if people eat poultry instead of red meat, what happens to heart disease? And if they eat fish instead of poultry, and if they eat fish instead of beef, and that if they eat beans instead of poultry, and beans instead of fish, and beans instead of beef, there's a really nice chart in the middle of the paper showing the magnitude of risk reduction with every one of these substitutions measured in terms of the rates of cardiovascular disease. And this study was exclusively in women. There's no reason to think it would be much different in men, but it showed that all of the substitutions you would expect caused reductions in cardiovascular disease, but by far and away, you go down this plot and you're looking at bigger and bigger and bigger differences. By far, the most massive risk reduction was the substitution of beans for beef, which also offer the advantage of tremendous benefit to the planet. Massively less water utilization, massively less greenhouse gas emissions. Almost all the other substitutions in the chart are in accord with what you would expect, so fish was better than beef. Maybe the one that was a little least clear, but I think it was a very small cell in the study, was beans replacing fish. This question's come up a number of times at the conference, what about fish? But it looked like that substitution favored beans as well. And again, just to repeat what I've said before, eating fish is certainly bad for the fish, whatever the effects are on the people. So you can kind of just see the magnitude of benefit associated with all of these individual food substitutions, which is a nice level of granularity to superimpose on the high-level message that we should be getting our protein exclusively or at least overwhelmingly from plants.